Hello, hello, hello. All right, I'm live on multiple channels. So if you're tuning in on YouTube or Facebook, just give me a minute while I share out on my TikTok channels. So just give me a second. Okay. Hello. It's our lovely Wednesday. If you're in Canada, then your week was probably pretty quick. I'm not sure if they do lives in other places. I don't know. They definitely do lives in other places. I don't know if they do Victoria Day in other places, is what I meant to say. So, anyway, us Canadians did have a long weekend this past weekend. I don't know who else would have experienced one, is what I was going to say. So Wednesday may feel like, wow, this week is just flying by because, if for those of us in Canada, we've got that short week, right? So that might be what you're experiencing. Buenos dias. I just saw you. I saw you. I was just about to share it to you. Oh, hello, hello. Oh my goodness. Sometimes you just, you touch a little off from where you mean to touch, and it's just the whole new thing. Hello, hello. How are you? Good morning. Or hi, good morning. Wow. How about we try that again? It's not morning, it's evening. Crazy. All right, I'm going to continue sharing out on this channel. Yeah, it's in and around this range somewhere, so we'll just start there and go with that. Okay. Hello, hello. How are you? I guess I could look up instead of looking down at the... Yeah, I kind of feel like I've shared it to enough people. Realist atheist. One and done. One and done. You probably wouldn't resonate with my stuff then. Hi, guys. Hello, hello. Hi, Riley. I always say hi. I forget that just when it says their name, it just means that they're probably online at the same time. It doesn't mean that they showed up, but I tend to do that. I'm like, hi, because I saw a name of someone that I know. Yeah. We're going to talk about a couple of things today. I'm going to do an energy check-in with my cards in a moment. I cleansed them before I started, so, the cards are clear. And so I'll do the reading, and then, which is, like I said, it's a collective energy reading with my exclusive Etherian tarot. So I created this deck of cards. It's a tarot deck that's expanded to include the fifth element, just to give it some understanding. And I did all the pictures on it, did the book for it, have it all ready to go into publication at some point. But for right now, I'm just using it. So it's an exclusive deck, but I'm going to do a reading with that, which is essentially, it's just the regular tarot deck with the ether element. So an extended element. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just a good temperature for drinking, and you have to stop yourself from drinking too much all at once. At least I did. Yeah. So we're going to talk about some spirituality stuff, but we're going to do an energy check-in, like I said, first using the cards. So we're going to, if you're interested, stick around for that. what I'm asking, or what I'm doing, is looking at the collective energy. So you'll see that the energy can be all over the place in a lot of ways. And that's because collectively there's a lot of different energies that are going on right now. Okay. All righty. So what's going on collectively? Can I get a good message there? Hello, hello. How are you? How are you? We're going to talk about spirituality today, though. That is the one thing that we're going to talk about because it's Wednesday. Wednesday is about embodied wisdom. And what that's all about is walking the talk. It's living the way. It's being, standing on what you say. So this is where you learn and do the spiritual practices, and you live what you speak. You speak what you are on point. So what we talk about today, we talk about a bunch of different things. I talk about all the different things that I teach, which can be, nervous system regulation. It can be talking about your spine as antenna. I've been talking about chakras as a multidimensional system in my Christic embodiment method. I talk about things surrounding trauma, mental health, healing, awakening, all of that stuff. And you'll notice on my channel, there's a variety of different content things that I share because, I do share things regarding tarot, or I'll share things regarding astrology under True Sidereal. That's the astrology that I use. But I do channel messages, and I've done energy healing. I've done a lot of things. But anyway, the whole point of today's is just going to be talking about spirituality and talking about some spiritual practices and other things. But mostly I wanted to talk about the concept of consent, and consent as it is in regards to energy, spirituality, because there's a couple of different camps on this point. And so I just want to give you a viewpoint on it. So let's see what our collective energy is. And once we get through the collective energy reading, we'll do some other stuff. The cards are flying now. They were a little bit slow there for a second, but all right, spiritually, energetically, sorry. Can you let us know what's going on with the collective? Oh, nice. That's a good card to have upright. Whoa. All right, I have a bunch of cards to pick up now that have fallen out of the deck. So just give me a second to get those cards up. I just wanted to make sure that we were good and done with it. And let's see if any fell on the floor. Oh, underneath. Yep. There was one all the way down there. Okay. What do we got here for all of our cards? All right. So far, we're not doing too bad. We'll see. All right. All right, so the first card that came out, and when I'm doing the collective energy reading, I'm going to talk about how these cards are taught, or how these cards are explaining the energies that are going on. And you'll notice that it's like we're living in different realities. And well, that's true because, well, my reality is different than your reality, and your reality and your reality, right? Like we all are living in different realities. Right? I'm not married. I have a dog, right? So, and I'm a woman. So, I mean, if you're a man, you already have a different reality than I do. If you live somewhere other than where I live, your reality is different. Your upbringing, your conditioning, programming, all of that different, so your reality is different than my reality, but our collective reality gets shared. So we have kind of local reality, right? Like you know that, right? You go in those little one-hit towns and there's a real local reality. And then there's a global reality, right? There's what we globally believe as a collective. So when I'm talking about this energy, you'll see how it kind of melds into different spaces, right? So it'll make sense to you that you've seen people who are like that, but then you'll see other ones where you're like, no, I'm that. So we'll talk about that. Hi, Shelby. How are you? Well, maybe you want to learn about spirituality or healing or awakening or those kinds of things. Or you need help with your nervous system. I'll talk about all of that in a minute. And maybe you just needed the reading. Okay, so the first card that came out was the World. And the World is about completion. So we have a lot of people right now. We have everybody's awakening at different stages. And I shouldn't say that everybody's awakening, because some people are here to show us exactly what happens if you don't awaken, while others, they're completely opposed to it. All right. They, they are rah to the other side. So they're not looking at what we're doing in that sense. They're not trying to do that. But there's many of us that are on this pathway of enlightenment. We are working on our ascension. We're evolving, stuff like that. So this is what the World card is talking about. It's talking about this completion, this mastery, and it can be talking about divine union as well, cosmic flow. It's really in connection with your spirituality, with your spiritual team. And this is what some of us are experiencing right now, because we're doing the work. So we're completing the cycle. And the whole point is because we came here for Mother Gaia. We came here to help the earth. We've got the Page of Fire coming out, and the Page of Fire, this is inspiration and enthusiasm and creativity and new opportunities. So it's a really beautiful energy that's coming out. And many of us are feeling that, this energy as we're moving through the collective energy. And what I'm meaning right now, when we're moving through this week energetically, where the planets are in the transitions that are happening, there we go. The planetary transitions that are happening this week, we are moving towards more of that energy of go, go, go. Let's do this, right? So there's that energy that is really propelling us forward. So that's coming up with that Page of Fire. And many of us are feeling that. We have the Seven of Fire, and the Seven of Fire is defiance and resilience. I can think of a couple of places around the world where the people are being very resilient, maybe very defiant even. They're protecting their countries and their way of life and all kinds of things. And so we are seeing this. We're seeing people holding their positions and asserting themselves more, and people who are enforcing boundaries. And so that's what that Seven of Fire is talking about, is those individuals. We have the Wheel, and the Wheel in the upright is speaking to destiny and change. And it's the whole concept that everything, it's a cycle, right? And we want to be rising with the cycle, not sitting in a circle and going around and around and around. So when you're seeing those patterns in your life, that's the cue. I need to do something about this particular thing. There's something in me that's bringing it to me. So it's either the way that I'm reacting to it, or a belief system that needs to change. There's something that is why it keeps getting presented to me. And so this is what that opportunity is to rise above it as opposed to remaining the same. And this is what this card is talking about, is that everything is continually changing. We are moving in cycles. So embrace the rhythm of change and just, kind of go with the flow in that way. Just trust that the changes that are happening are the changes that are necessary. We have the Three of Ether coming out, and this is about divine teamwork. This is ascended co-creation, manifestation through higher realms, and it is conscious expansion and alignment with the universe. Like, this is this beautiful energy. Many of us are doing that. I know a lot of people in the spiritual spaces who are connecting to their ancestors, they're channeling spirits, they're communicating with Mother Gaia, they're bringing ritual back. They're doing rites and stuff like that. So this is important because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We're not meant to lift ourselves out of the physical, right? We're meant to rise the entirety of Earth in her vibration, not ascend out of her. When, we're meant to bring heaven to earth through marrying our spirits with our body. So the physical component is important. We're not meant to bypass that. So we're starting to see that more, where people are involving and doing it in an energetic capacity, where we're having those real communications with, the other side, or we're having really collaborative relationships with people that there's no competitiveness. There's none of that energy. We also have the 6 of ether coming out, and the 6 of ether, when it's coming out, is talking about this cosmic shift. And we're seeing that energetically, and hopefully we're rising with the earth, which is interesting how many circles were in this particular reading. So we're moving through this energetic gateway and leaving behind dense realities. So this is this leveling up, this moving towards peace and clarity, and there's assistance coming from the higher realms. So this is definitely energy that we're experiencing in the collective, but we're also seeing other energies as well. So on this side, we have some other energy. So we have the 2 of earth. For many of us, we're experiencing a lot of indecision. And for some, there's mental clarity. We're weighing our options, kind of thinking about what are we going to do. But we can also be avoiding our truth in that, because we know the decision that we need to make, because your body tells you the truth all the time. So if you learn to listen to your body and follow it, it's going to help you to make the right decision. And then you're not just stuck in that space of indecision, which is allowing you to avoid some truth that you need to make sense of. We had the Temperance card in the reverse, and collectively this is talking about imbalance. And there's a very clear imbalance in society right now. Between the top and the rest, right? There's a significant imbalance. This is also talking about impatience, and many of us are feeling impatient. And as the energies continue to rise, and as more and more of us awaken and the frequency of the earth rises, more and more people are going to be impatient. They're going to feel themselves being irritated. So there's going to be a lot of extremes that we're seeing in society right now too. There is many people who are resisting the flow. There's lots that are doing overindulgence, and they are completely disconnected from higher guidance. So this is energy that we're seeing as well. I mean, I know that I'm over on this side in this energy, but this is definitely the energies that we're seeing. We have the 10 of air, and the 10 of air is usually the card where you've made the decision that enough is enough. You've been stabbed in the back enough times, or you've been lied to enough times, or the manipulation has happened enough times, and you finally say enough is enough and you walk away, and it's just a clear letting go. But in this situation, when it's reversed, it's about resisting letting that go. And many of us it's almost like holding on to, what we see as the current way that we're living. And so many are holding on to that, even though that's not even the right or the healthy way, right? So we're holding on to something that's not even good for us. It talks about like difficulty in letting go. And many of us do. We hold on and we hold on and we hold on. And it's like, oh my gosh, if we had to just let go, how much easier we would have made it for ourselves, because we were clinging to things that weren't even aligned with us, right? We'd have, maybe I did it before, have unhealthy relationships and sit there and hang on to it anyway, even though I knew it wasn't healthy. But that's what we do on our healing journey. So there's this holding on to pain and delaying the inevitable that's coming up with the 10 of air as well. And you can see that in society that many are doing that. Buenas noches. I'm glad you didn't show up earlier, because I thought that you had, and I said hello, but I thought I said date I said good day instead of good night. So I'm glad that you showed up when I could say it correctly. We also had the page of air in the reverse position, which is talking about the members of society who are overthinking and they have just really scattered thoughts. There's a lot of doubt and confusion, and some are resisting knowledge. It's like you can see the truth in front of your face, but you'd still deny it. And many of us do that, right? We were taught something in school and we hold, oh, that's the truth. That's the truth, the truth, the truth. And you can see it right in your eyes and go, but that doesn't make any sense. But school told you this. So you just fight tooth and nail to make that, whatever it is, fit with what you were taught. And you fight for it. And that's what that resisting knowledge is. That even though your body's telling you, wait, this isn't true. There's something you need to be looking at here. There's something you need to be at, like some question you need to ask. I had a post come up on my thing today, and it was a reel, and the reel went right away. It went, people never ask why the moon is out during the daytime. And I had to send it to my friend because we do. we ask all the time. We talk about it all the time. Every time we see the moon out during the daytime, we're like, not your turn, moon, right? You don't see the sun doing that. And we say that all the time. So it was quite funny to see that this post came up saying the same thing. But that's what we mean about questioning things, right? If that should be something that we question and go, why is that? Why is that? And why can't they explain it in a way that makes sense, right? And we're meant to question those things because that's how you find out what the truth is or what's not the truth, right? And then we have the Seven of Water come out. And the Seven of Water, this is about confusion and avoidance and indecision. It's about illusionary thinking, escapism, and difficulty making choice. And you can see where a lot of people in society are doing those very things. And hopefully you're not one of them. But there is a lot of avoidance, right? When we think about when the information came out and then like nothing's happened with it. And instead we have another thing happening and another thing happening and another thing happening. And it's like, when is it going to stop? And when do we get back to where there's accountability, where somebody takes responsibility, right? And instead it's just another thing and another thing and another thing and another thing. And so accountability never gets held because we're all confused, and that's the point. Right? There's just this, so many of us are just escaping reality because it's almost like, what's the point? Right? What's the point of being checked in when we're like, right? I mean, I don't know. I have my own company. So I show up my own company every day and I run a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is helping the homeless. So, I do those things, but I don't know how I would be going. I don't know how. I don't know. Like when it comes to just showing up and continuing to show up in a system that's completely broken, like ours is. It's weird. It's crazy. So what I wanted to talk about today, besides this, was consent, spirituality, energy healing, all of that stuff. Okay. So I had a conversation today. There's a content creator that I see her stuff coming up on my stuff, and she's Christie's Healing Playground or something, and her actual handle's Christy_healing_corner, I believe. But anyway, she had put a post up about doing energy healing. And when she started the post, it went straight into, you just go, just someone with pain, just find somebody with pain and just do energy healing on them. And I commented in the post, get consent. And I uppercased all of consent and then said, you always need to be getting consent. And so she she commented on my comment, and we were having conversation back and forth. And she said, well, I have so much to say on this, so I'm going to stitch your comment. Well, she couldn't stitch my comment, but she eventually made a video to work with it. and went on to tell me about all of this stuff, and that basically my ideas that you need consent spiritually is like a man-made concept. That when we get to unity consciousness and we're all interconnected, that stuff all goes away. And I disagree. And I'm going to speak about this today because I think it's a very important thing that the spiritual community maybe glosses over or gets slightly incorrect. So I want to talk about that a bit so that you guys you understand as well, right? So when we're doing spiritual work, whether that's energy work, doing a reading, when if I was to even doing a natal chart, and to do a natal chart, to look someone's information up, you should really have their consent to go deep into their information, to have someone's entire birth information, date, time, place of birth, and to run that information and get all their stuff and dissect that. That's pretty invasive, right? It seems pretty invasive to me. To do readings on people, right? To dip into somebody's energy, to do a psychic reading on somebody. You lucked out finding me today? So, a person's soul, their energy, their body, their emotion, and their psyche, it's all interconnected, right? Our multidimensional selves expands across 7 energetic layers. So it's not like you only have to ask for consent on the physical, but then every other layer that's out there, you can just go and do whatever you want with, right? Like that's not the way that it works, right? When we want to be asking for consent before doing anything. So one of the things that the content creator brought up to me is, well, when you walk into a room, you feel somebody's energy. You naturally feel it because we're interconnected. Yeah, you do feel other people's energy, but that doesn't mean that when I feel that there's tension in the air, that doesn't mean that I immediately go into that person's energy and I start going through their body, trying to figure out exactly where the tension is, what it's linked to. I don't just immediately do healing, reduce the tension that they're experiencing and move it out of the way. That's a violation of their consent. That's me thinking that I know best, and that's me being spiritually narcissistic, right? So we have to be aware of this stuff. Permission matters, presence matters, autonomy matters, interpretation is not ownership, and feeling connected to somebody is not the same as having access to them. So just because I feel the energy when I come into the room doesn't mean I get to do a psychic evaluation of you, right? It doesn't mean that and it's the same thing. Like, so what I said to her was, well, one, I was a nurse for over 20 years, right? I worked as a nurse, so consent is huge for me. And then not being a nurse, I would ask somebody before I kissed them. I would ask somebody before I touched them. I would ask somebody before I did surgery. I'd ask somebody before I gave them medication. Like we're supposed to be looking at the age of consent. So anyway, this is just some of my stuff that I want to talk about around consent. Okay. So where is it really important that we get consent? Well, when we're doing energy work and healing. So sending someone love, prayer, compassion, or well wishes is generally different from attempting to alter, clear, enter, scan, manipulate, or work on someone's field without permission. Okay, there's a big difference. And not only this, I want to clarify, when you're praying for somebody, you are supposed to be praying to God, the higher power, right? Prime source, whatever your name for the almighty creator of all, right? You're praying to that for that person, but the almighty is what decides what ends up happening for that person. So like, it's different than me determining to just heal somebody without asking for their consent. The other thing that we have to understand is that pain is a huge and like very powerful impetus for change, right? If I take away somebody's pain, then what gives them the energy or the urge to change anything, right? Because pain, you can have a sore shoulder and you can be sitting there going, oh yeah, it's just a baseball injury. Meanwhile, it's because for your whole life, you felt like you had to be responsible for your mother's emotions. And so anytime that your mom is upset or is feeling something, you start to feel that responsibility and you start to ache in your shoulder. You don't understand the mechanisms or know to work on it because somebody decided, hey, that person's got a sore shoulder. He's got pain. I'm just going to heal it for him. Right. And you can, so I wanted to talk about this. Like, this is a very important thing. Like, we need to be ensuring that we're getting consent. It doesn't matter whether you're doing energy healing or you're being a nurse and you're doing healing. It does not matter. Right. When we're doing energy work and healing, we need their consent. So many practitioners hold the view that I can offer healing into the highest good, but the person's system chooses whether to receive it, and that preserves agency. But the problem is we have to be reminded of the fact that it's a physical experience that we're having right now. I love you. Thank you so much, because I know what you just did. So thank you. Thank you. I see you. I see you. All right. So problems begin when someone claims authority over another person's soul, when they take the ability to override their will, right? It's free will. We have free will. We cannot be overriding that. When somebody says that they have exclusive access to them, or they feel like they're entitled to intervene because they believe that they are more awakened or they know what's best, right? Like I said, that's spiritual narcissism. And that can be very spiritually coercive is what it is. So in the age of discernment, make sure that you get consent. That's the way that it should be. Another time when you should be getting consent is when you're doing psychic readings or you're doing an energetic scan of somebody. Now, when you walk in the room and you feel the energy in the room and it's really tense, you can cut it with a knife, whatever it is, that's different. You walked in the room, you felt the energy. You're not scanning into it. You're not saying, where is it coming from? What is it? Who's got it? Like, you're not dissecting the energy. You've just received the energy as you went into that space. So there's a difference between intuitively sensing the dynamics naturally versus intentionally probing into someone's emotional, sexual, relational, or spiritual life without consent. Most people justify invasive behavior by saying their higher self allowed it. Did it? But how do you verify that claim? Right? How do you verify it? So there's no objective way that you can verify that, and it doesn't matter anyway. We're not in the spiritual realm. We are in the physical realm. And because you are physical, then you need their physical consent. You can't bypass their physical and say, I got their higher self consent, because did your higher self bypass you? No. So you didn't get consent, right? So the healthy discernment has to be asking, is what I'm doing, is it respectful? Is it necessary? Is it even necessary? Would I be comfortable if someone did this to me? And am I honoring this person's humanity, right? Because I have I have to be able to move through the spaces that I have to move through and have the experiences that I'm meant to have. And if somebody was to take away, say, some element that I was meant to experience, and because I didn't experience that, I'm going to stay in this space that I'm in for, more time, because that was what was going to be the thing that made me change, because it was my rock bottom. But somebody took it away from me because they thought they knew better. That's not right. So you have to be wise when you're doing spiritual work. No different than if you're a doctor, a nurse, any healthcare practitioner, any therapist, any of that. As a spiritual worker, as someone that's working with energy healing, who claims to be psychic, all of that stuff. People come onto my channel and they ask me, hey, tell me what so-and-so, da, 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 da. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. I will give you the best card for you, and you can interpret the message that I deliver to you in whatever way is for you. But I will not do readings on other people for people, because that's not their business. And I need their consent. That's my thing. So the other thing is with twin soul or with twin flame or soul contract narratives. So this is another big area where consent can become distorted. A spiritual connection can be really, it can feel incredibly real, and it can feel really meaningful too. But intense resonance does not remove free will. Perceived soul bonds do not equal relational entitlement. We are destined is not consent, and their higher self wants this is not consent if the human self does not, right? We're having a human experience, period. We can't override the human. A grounded spiritual path leaves room for mutual choice, for ambiguity, for timing, for boundaries, for change, for all of that. Because love without consent becomes control, even if it's wrapped in spiritual language. Like, it doesn't change the fact that it's still control, right? Manifestations involving other people are another thing, where we're manifesting a love connection or connection of any kind, where we're for abundance, healing, or aligned relationships, right? When we're manifesting it in general terms, so we're manifesting love, or we're manifesting the connection, or whatever, that's fine. But it's when we're trying to specifically override another person's agency. So we can say something like, may the most aligned relationship unfold, rather than I will energetically force this specific person into union. And I used to talk about it in the sense that when we were manifesting somebody, we didn't want to be sitting there going, oh, I'm manifesting, it has to be this person. It has to be this person. And you get fixated on that. Meanwhile, that's just blocking you from what is meant for you, because you think it has to be that specific person. But you're also tying that person up energetically as well, or you're at least energetically muddling in their space because of that, right? So you want to honor the possibility that this could be the person, but it also might not be the person. And the other way, though, is just very energetically dominating. So we are interconnected. Absolutely, we're interconnected. We influence each other constantly through nervous systems, through emotion, attention, intention, behavior, environment, and collective consciousness. Like, we are interconnected through all those different spaces. But that's not the same as unrestricted access. A healthy spiritual framework balances unity with sovereignty, because both matter. So the healthiest approach is to ask permission, right? Always ask permission, respect boundaries, stay humble about your interpretation, avoid certainty inflation, distinguish intuition from objective fact, prioritize compassion over authority, and understand that feeling something strongly does not automatically make it universally true. And perhaps more importantly is that you remain accountable in ordinary human reality, not only spiritual abstraction. Okay, we have to be real in the 3D, because that's where we are. And so we can't override it and just be in the spiritual space. So tickle. So Instead of asking if you are spiritually allowed to do this, it's better to ask, is what I'm doing going to increase freedom, clarity, dignity, agency, and love for everyone involved, right? And, and that cuts through a bunch of stuff much differently. So it's like we have to be having these conversations right now, right? It's extremely important that we are. Right. And, I hope that you align with that concept, right? That it's important that we have consent. So spirituality does not remove human responsibility. Often one of the most important things to understand is this: spiritual experiences do not exempt people from ethical behavior. Someone can meditate daily, channel information, feel energy, have intuitive gifts, experience altered states, and feel profound connection to source, and still project, manipulate, violate boundaries, misunderstand their perceptions, misuse influence, or cause harm intentionally. Awakening does not automatically equal maturity. And this is one of the biggest blind spots that are in modern spirituality right now. The higher self said yes problem. This is one of the most dangerous loopholes. Example, your soul already agreed to this, or your higher self wanted this healing. I was guided to intervene. Spirit told me we were meant to be together. I accessed your records and received information about you, or I can feel your energy wants this, even if your human self resists. The issue is there is no objective verification method for these claims. This creates an ethical problem of people unintentionally or intentionally bypassing visible consent by appealing to invisible authority. So if the embodied human being says no, that matters. No matter what, that matters. Even if someone genuinely believes they received spiritual guidance, humility and consent are still essential. Projection is extremely common in spiritual spaces. People often mistake longing for destiny, attraction for soul recognition, nervous system activation for divine union, intuition for certainty, and symbolic experiences for objective fact. Humans are meaning-making beings. We love to make meaning. We make meaning with everything. So when spirituality enters the picture, emotional intensity can become amplified and interpreted cosmically. And that doesn't mean that those interpretations or those experiences are fake, but it just means that the interpretation requires discernment. And without grounding, projection can become obsession, savior complex, spiritual superiority, dependency, paranoia, or energetic enmeshment. And energetic boundaries are real. Many spiritually sensitive people genuinely feel the emotions from others, the atmosphere in rooms, relational tension, intuitive impressions, and collective emotional states. But sensitivity does not create entitlement. Being empathic is not permission to analyze people without consent, to invade emotional privacy, to scan others inclusively, to attach spiritually to strangers, or to override boundaries because energy says otherwise. A spiritually mature person learns sensitivity must be balanced with restraint. So if you're somebody that's an empath, learn your boundaries, because that's one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself and for others. Right? You don't need to be tying yourself up in other people's energy if you don't want to, and you don't need to, and you shouldn't, because consensually you shouldn't, right? Unconditional love does not mean boundarylessness either, right? And this one is really, really important because many of us are taught that you love everyone, you stay open, transcend ego, dissolve separation, and avoid judgment. And we just become these love everybody, love everything, joy and bliss, all happy, happy. Oh, no, it's just so sweet and wonderful, right? This is what but that's distorted, and distorted interpretations of these teachings can make people tolerate manipulation and coercion, abuse, energetic intrusion, and unhealthy attachments. Because healthy spirituality recognizes compassion and boundaries can coexist, forgiveness and distance can coexist, and unity and sovereignty can coexist. So you can love someone deeply and still say, no, stop, not now, do not access me this way, I do not consent. You don't have to give people every bit of your information, right? You don't have to tell everybody everything about you. You are allowed to have secrets. I encourage you to keep areas of your life private to yourself, right? Because you are a sovereign individual and you're entitled to that. But we're taught differently. We're taught that we should tell everybody everything, right? Chatty Cathy over here. So trauma and spirituality can intertwine. And I see it all the time. And that's where I started, is with trauma. And I do spirituality. So I have 3 groups, if I look at it that way. The one group that I have is free, and that's the entranceway, and it's Temple of Light. And it's called Temple of Light because your body is your temple to the spirit, which is the light. So the Temple of Light. So this is the entrance. So we talk about all the stuff that I talk about a little bit deeper. So I give you extra stuff. Then I have the 2 groups, and the one group is the Balanced Self Sanctuary. The Balanced Self Sanctuary is for people on their healing journey. It's that supportive environment where you get somatic practices and all of that stuff. And that's because trauma. So I work with trauma. And then on the other side, I work with awakening and ascension. And so this is where we have the Embodied Leadership Circle. That's the other group that I have, which I think that is just interesting. But trauma and spirituality can intertwine, and they do. So people with trauma histories may seek certainty, seek cosmic reasoning or meaning, seek rescue. They may seek specialness, seek belonging, or seek spiritual authority figures, right? So spiritual practices can become emotionally overwhelming when they're mixed with attachment wounds, abandonment fears, nervous system dysregulation, loneliness, or identity instability. This does not invalidate spirituality. It just means that psychological grounding matters, and you need to be doing your trauma healing and your ascension, right? It's not one or the other. They both need to occur, because sometimes what people call a psychic attack or karmic punishment or divine testing, or even that twin flame running, chasing dynamic, it might actually just be trauma activation, emotional dysregulation, projection, anxiety, and obsession and relational dynamics. It can be a lot of these things. When you do the grounded path, you make room for both. So you can have spiritual meaning and psychological reality, right? We want to ground it in both, okay? Ethical, ethical spiritual practice requires humility. A spiritually ethical person will ask permission, they will admit uncertainty, they will avoid inflated certainty, they will avoid making themselves the ultimate authority, they will respect free will, they will encourage discernment, they will welcome questions, stay accountable, and avoid dependency dynamics. One of the clearest red flags in spiritual practices is only I know the truth, or if you disagree, you're unconscious or you're not awake or you're whatever, right? And I have seen this so much in the spiritual community as actually just like shocking sometimes. And I shouldn't be shocked. I shouldn't. But, like where people just like they say the most unhinged things on social media, all the while claiming to be spiritually enlightened and, like, well, I'm Arcturian and I'm this and I'm that. And I'm just tired of all these stupid people and they just get me so frustrated, and they go into this dynamic. And you're just like, wow, and you're enlightened. Okay, congratulations, yay for you, right? So we see that out there in the community. We see all of these people pretending to be something that they're not, or not standing on their words, or like I said, where people, are talking in different terms about consent, and that somehow because we're interconnected, that on the spiritual plane we can bypass consent but we're not on the spiritual plane. Let's just get back to the dimension that we're in, like the current physical dimension that we're in, and work on the physical level, because it has to be on the physical level to be embodied. Okay. Then we have group dynamics and spiritual influence, because we have communities where they can unconsciously create pressure around conformity. And I saw this because I put down on her post about asking for consent before doing energy healing, which she took that I was super passionate and super like locked in man-made, constructs and all this other stuff, and blinded by blah, blah, blah. The comments that she made, but she encouraged her followers to assess my energy and to respond. And so she turned it into a conformity thing and a group think, and, basically like pitchfork mentality. So to me, that just automatically altered the way that I had perceived her from before anyway. Right. But that's a part of it, as we get into these communities and we unconsciously create pressure to conform, or to be always in a high vibrational state, to be constantly in agreement with each other, or, with the leader of the group, that there's some spiritual hierarchy, or there has to be this loyalty to leaders, and a suppression of any of the discomfort that you're feeling. And within these groups, people may silence their intuition because they fear being low frequency, or they fear exclusion from the group, or they fear seeming like they're unawakened because they're not getting whatever that person's saying, right? And, and so this is why consent culture matters in spirituality as well. It's extremely important, because people need to feel safe to question, to pause, to decline, to leave, to disagree, to change their minds without punishment or shame. Because are we not healing here? Are we not evolving? Are we not ascending? And if we are, then we need to be doing those things, right? And we need to be honoring that in others. Love without control. Perhaps the deepest spiritual ethic is this: real love expands freedom. Not control, not possession, not domination, not energetic ownership. If a practice, a teaching, a reader, a healer, or a relationship consistently reduces your agency, your groundedness, your clarity, your autonomy, or your self-trust, something is off. It doesn't matter how great the language sounds. Spiritually, something's off, or like something's off. It doesn't matter how it sounds. So the spiritual community is moving towards a more integrated model. And this is the model that I have at Anshara'El, right? It includes ethics, it includes consent, trauma awareness, nervous system understanding, like trauma and nervous system stuff's my jam, discernment, accountability, embodiment. We're here on Embodied Wisdom Wednesday, so embodiment's important. Right. And so is discernment. Like, I want you to use your discernment. I want to teach you how to use your discernment really, really, really well, so that you know what the truth is for you and you don't need me at all. So them, as well as relational health, right? This is what we're supposed to be teaching. And I am. But spirituality expressed through a more mature humanity, not one that's disconnected from reality. It has to marry the two of them so that we have more of that real wisdom. So we're not escaping being a human being. We become deeply, responsibly, compassionately human while remaining open to the mystery, to the spirituality, to the esoteric, to the, to all of that, to the energy. So we're not shutting ourselves off from that, but we're still remembering that we are having a human experience. And being that we are having a human experience, we need the consent of the human before we do any energetic or spiritual work on them. So that's what I decided I wanted to talk about today. How are you doing? Alrighty. Well, I'm going to head off of here. I love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for today. I will probably post some of that, share that parts of those lives, because it's important. It's important for us to remember to get consent, and that we are supposed to be working ethically and morally. We're supposed to be responsible. Even in our spiritual practices, we can't just be going around and healing people without asking for their consent first. No different than you would if you were a nurse or a doctor. And you can't be, doing energy readings or psychic readings on people who didn't ask for it and don't consent to it. Right. And it's something that, I hope that you take something away from this live. And yeah. All right. I'll be back on Saturday at 10 a.m. Mountain, where we will be doing the global meditation. It's return to center. We'll do an energy check-in, and then we will do some chit chat, and then we're going to finish it off with our global meditation. And that starts, like I said, at 10 a.m. Mountain. 10 a.m. Mountain. Yes. 10 a.m. Mountain. And so I'll see you there. 10 a.m. Mountain Saturday. And then after that, it is 6 p.m. on Sunday Mountain as well, where we will do the celestial briefing. So we'll look at the energies according to the living sky. So that's using True Sidereal. I use the skylive.com to run all of my stuff. So if you want to know what energies we're going to be looking at for the week ahead, come and join me on Sunday night at 6 p.m. Mountain. If you want to do a global meditation, that's 10 a.m. Saturday. And otherwise, I'll see you back here on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m., where we will once again be talking about things involving spirituality, trauma, healing, all of that good stuff. I call it embodied wisdom, because we have to actually embody it for it to be true, considering we are human beings with bodies. All right. I love you guys. Have a great night, and I will see you on Saturday.